I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have roll call, please, Cindy?
Counselor Hughes? Here. Counselor McElroy?
Here.
Counselor Metcalf?
Here.
Counselor Prokop?
Here.
Counselor Strobel?
Here.
Counselor Tenbush?
Here.
Mayor Drinkwine?
Here. Thank you very much for that. We are at our guest presentation. We have Northwest Natural here. We have Nina and Andrea. It's good to see you tonight. They're on there, so if there's any questions you'd like to ask them, or I'll have them start off and just kind of say a little bit about what they do and who they are, and we'll go from there. So go ahead. Anytime you want to start, you want to put one of them up?
Yes, I think,
Thank
can you
you.
hear us? Oh, good. Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Good deal. Thank you, Mayor Drinkwine and City Council staff. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Nina Carlson, and I do government affairs and economic development for Northwest Natural. And luckily, I have the lovely city of Estacada in my territory. And with me tonight, I have my colleague, Andrea Cannell, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening. And I'm Andrea Cannell. I'm an engineering manager with Northwest Natural. My work group really works on the distribution system and reinforcement and expansion projects. So thank you for having us.
Good. We appreciate having both of you here tonight. I've been down this road with you a few times, but you know, Estacada is growing. And as we grow, we need natural gas. So I've asked staff to bring you back. I know they've already talked to you about this, but this is such an important topic. And I think we all kind of want to weigh in on this because we think it's important for numerous reasons. But one is, you know, we have an industrial park out there and we've always hit that crucial point, you know, bring the natural gas first and then the customers will come, or bring the customers first and the natural gas will come. Well, obviously, it always works out that natural gas needs to be here in order to get that customer base. So we've looked at that. We've also looked at, you know, with prices going up on heating and everything else, you know, having natural gas as an alternative in our new houses and our new housing developments is kind of essential in this price market. And we'd like to talk to you about that, try to get your interest in it and figure out a way to make this work. But that said, I have several counselors here. Who wants to start out? Do you have any questions for?
They might have it. Do you have a presentation you'd like to go through first and then go with questions, or how would you like to do that?
Yeah, we have about 6 slides. I'm not sure if you guys have the ability to share it from your end. I will try and share it from my end because I do have it pulled up here. But you let me know how you want to do that.
If you could, why don't you try and share that, and that way you could click through. If not, we have it here too, I think, just as a backup.
Okay. Share. Start it.
Looks like it's coming through. There we go.
Okay. So thank you again for having us here. This is a very super high level presentation. Just to kind of level set where we have been and where we currently are. This is in no way a full economic development or proposal to the city. This is just kind of to level set for any new counselors who have not been through this procedure like Mayor Drinkwine has, unfortunately, too many times. So we'll start with, I'm going to get this to the reading view just really quick here. Of course, my oh dear. Well, you're gonna have to deal with me from this manner if you don't mind, because the bar where I'm sharing is right where my reading view, where to put it in the full screen. So can you deal with it this way?
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Okay.
We can see it pretty good. It's pretty big.
Okay, so we're gonna go through just a couple things. Number one, where the city is in relation to Northwest Natural, the proximity of the rest of the Northwest Natural system. We'll talk high level on the economics and the financial considerations, like what it entails to figure out what this really is going to cost, and maybe some very high level ballpark costs, some ideas on potential funding sources, some political realities I want you to kind of keep in mind, and maybe some questions that will need to be asked if the city wants to proceed kind of with this, and then what the next steps would look like. So kicking that off is the proximity of the city to our current existing system. And I can maybe blow this up a little tiny bit. I don't know. But I'll let my area engineer, Andrea, or engineering manager, Andrea, talk a little bit about how we would get there and what that kind of looks like.
Yeah, thank you. Currently, as you may know, we have a high pressure pipeline along Oregon Highway 212, and that goes into Sandy, and we do have service into Sandy. We've also a few years ago built a pipeline down Ritchie Road and Kelso Road, so we're a little bit closer to. There you go.
There we go.
There you go. And
Great.
maybe, oh, going back there. So this slide was prepared, I think the last, a couple years ago. It says 2019, but geography doesn't really change too much. There's a bunch of different line colors there. The orange line is really what we have in service. And the red, green, and blue and yellow lines are different routes to get from our existing facilities down to Estacada. All of those routes are about 10 miles just to get kind of to the city, city center, or edge of the city. And it would take a considerable effort to, construct those, any of those routes. We think, just based on our experience, maybe the green to yellow route might be the best one. But in order to evaluate really the design and construction costs and potentially permitting requirements and environmental permitting, more feasibility study would really be required, even before we kind of went into the full design phase. But we have put some thought into what it would take. There a lot of information would be needed from the city in terms of what kind of load demand, what kind of load studies you've done, what kind of customers you're expecting. Really, that gets into much more details than we have right now. I think that has also been done in the past as well. But I don't think we've had any updated information for, I don't know, several years, maybe up to 5 years or something. So, but that's what it would look like. It would be really a high pressure pipeline coming into the city, and then building distribution networks based on customer requested sites or customer demand.
Okay, so there are kind of, again, we're just kind of giving you the overview. I'm glad that Mr. Lagarza is here because it really will take someone with some economic development chops working with us to kind of parse out how and how much and what this would actually look like. Frankly, this is something that has been the big elephant in the room. Cost is a major obstacle, and costs have increased dramatically since 2018. And if I'm correct in remembering or looking at our former presentation, I believe that route that one of the routes that Andrea showed you was about $20 million in 2018. And we can think that costs may be 1.5 times to two times more than that in the subsequent years due to constraints between workers and supply chain and materials and permitting and all those things. So you can kind of use that for the very highest level marker of 1.5 times to 2 times what we quoted you in 2018. And then, as Andrea said, to determine which route it makes more sense or is most cost effective, proper feasibility studies will need to be done, and those can range in cost depending on the level of detail and the level of specificity you get, between maybe $100,000 to $200,000 on for those kinds of things. And as Mayor Drinkwine knows, and for information for other counselors, we're a regulated utility and we can't bring on new customers that don't pay their way onto the system. So current customers can't subsidize Northwest Natural adding new customers. So with that meaning, whatever money we put in to add bringing transmission out and gas to the city, we have to have the ability to, or we have to have contracts or customers willing to pay for that. We wish it were different sometimes, but that is the reality of being a regulated utility. Andrea, do you have anything on those points you want to add?
Yeah, I think just as we've all experienced in our personal and professional lives, contractors are more expensive, materials are more expensive in the last few years. And so we've seen a huge increase in costs across the board. And that shouldn't be a surprise probably to anyone, but there's definitely some uncertainty about what, the real cost would look like. So really, and I think maybe the last time we put together a scope of work for what a feasibility study might look like, I don't know. And we would outsource that to a third party consultant, really. So they're, those findings would be neutral and based on, our experience, but also an independent third party would provide that expertise for the feasibility.
And one thing in addition, and I don't want you guys to think us coming here saying, throwing a bunch of cold water on this idea, because this is really important for the city to have, to really maximize their industrial park, to give their residents the energy choices that we know people want. But if we find the funding, or if the funding is found, I do want the city to realize that there will probably be political aspects that need to be considered as well as these financial ones. And by that, I mean permitting anything, especially through areas that are undeveloped at this time. And in our current political climate, especially with many people's views on climate change, there will be probably some pretty severe pushback on that from the political angle. So I want all of this potentially can be overcome, but I want you guys to go into this with your eyes wide open about the hurdles that basically are going to need to have a plan to be faced. And but that being said, funding sources may very well be available and really are going to need to be stacked and bundled. And that's where someone like Mr. Lagarza or another kind of consultant will probably help you best about figuring out where the money could actually come from in a real scenario. So I'm going to pause there. Are there questions? We have a couple more slides that are a little bit more detail, but I didn't know if there are any questions from council at this point.
Anything anybody like to ask at this time?
Yeah. What's the reality of PG putting in a natural gas fueled system for powering power plant? Would that would make it a lot easier to come out here? I don't know that there's any in close proximity to here. Has there ever been any discussion about a natural gas fueled PG plant out this way?
Well, two things I will say. I can't speak for PGE, but we have a monopoly on transporting natural gas. So if any natural gas is going to be transported, we would be part of that equation. Additionally, I would say that, that would be something done in concert. I would say in this political climate, and that's, a good part of my job, I'm not sure that PGE would be allowed to permit and build a gas-fired generating plant when they're supposed to be 80% decarbonized, meaning like only renewable fuels by 2030, and then I believe 90% by 2040. So that's probably not going to happen. Things can
Are they
change.
planning on taking they're producing a third of their power now with natural gas plants. Are they planning, those are all going offline then?
No, I think
Next
they're
5
banned
years?
from adding any new plants, using fossil fuels. And I think that's at the state level. So we could probably get you some more information on that. I don't want to speak out of turn for PGE, but yes, they're not able to build new generation off of fossil fuels.
That's correct. And the idea would be of their generation that they do today and to serve their customer load going forward, increasing amounts. And when I say increasing amounts, think about 80% by 2030, barring any unforeseen circumstances. That's what they are required by state law to do. Now, I'm not going to say whether that can be done, but that's where their legislative reality is today. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Charity?
Your third finding, new customer beneficiaries must pay their own way onto the system. What does that process look like?
Basically, it means, and I'm just gonna use round numbers. Let's say a person wants to hook up to natural gas. We figure out what it would cost to hook them up. Maybe it's just a service on their private lot from our main in the street to their house. That's going to come with a cost. There's a certain amount of allowance that and what that means is however much money they would pay over a certain number of years, we're able to credit them in ahead of time, and then we can hook them up. If there's an amount owed beyond that, they would need to write us a check. And so what that would mean is we see this a lot in areas like your industrial plant. The city would either need to front load or pay for our infrastructure that we bring there, and then they could charge an SDC or recover that fee from any customers that come on during a certain period of time. So the idea is you and me who have gas service, we have paid our way or paid for the system. If new people want to access that and it requires a cost, their usage has to cover that cost. It can't be, shall we say, subsidized by current customers. And did I explain that well enough?
You did, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Paul?
So if natural gas were to come out to Estacada, are we talking primarily industrial or is there any chance for residential as well too?
Well, and Andrew, I'll let you.
Yeah,
go with that.
I'll take this one. We would have to provide kind of like a backbone feeder to get enough gas out here. That's that 10 to 12 mile pipeline. And then once that's in the system, you could have more organic growth where we could build a distribution system to a subdivision or other, another commercial park, things like that. So, the key would be to get that backbone system, and then customers can add a little more easily without that huge front load cost.
And then do
I
we have
wanted to-
any, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to show you this, we aren't going to go into this in detail, but when we did our last presentation to you guys, we kind of showed you some industries that provide some of the most, I'm going to call it bang for the buck, meaning they use enough of our product that their usage would give you more allowable or more money towards the project. So the idea would be you have a centralized area that like your industrial park is the perfect example, and you would get X number of these types of industries in there that need natural gas, and that would really help offset some of that cost to bring the system out there. But this shows you there's two different kinds of load. There's heat load, where you think about that's what your house might use or an office might use, and then there's what we call process load, where you're using our product to dry out wood, to melt, metal for smelting and things like that, or creating glass, things that use lots of our product at a pretty consistent basis to do something, to do a process. So those are the kinds of industries in your industrial park that will give you the kind of usage that will help offset some of those costs of bringing the system out.
Thanks. Paul, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just following up on the residential question, it sounds like industrial is going to be the primary focus if it were to come out here for a number of years, with then the possibility of maybe doing residential down the line. But if it went residential, it sounds like there'd be, maybe you guys would pay to get it to a subdivision, but once it's at a subdivision, we go back to the customer would have to pay to be connected to the supply line. And then if it's an all electric house now, they'd have to pay to retrofit their home as well too. So it sounds like it'd be almost an insurmountable cost.
It would be, there's no two ways about it. Like we brought a line into Coos Bay, And the folks down there, because people didn't want to write huge checks, they had an additional, I'm going to say, kind of rider on their bill, and it allowed them to help finance that extension of the infrastructure to their neighborhoods over a period of time. That might possibly be done, but it's going to, if frankly, until you get the system out in your industrial park, it's going to be probably prohibitively expensive for folks to have it for individual homes. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but until, I think the focus really does need to be to getting it to the industrial park and having some larger users that help you pay for that. Anything can be done, but the money needs to be paid up front because of the way we're regulated.
Thanks.
Jonathan, I know this is a hot topic for you. Just absorbing. No, okay, all right. Mike?
What level of consumption would be needed in the industrial park for it to pencil out for $30 to $40 million pipeline extension?
And that's
Okay.
where we need to do
Yeah.
much more number crunching.
I think one of the counselors asked what the next steps are. We have a major accounts team that, you know, if this was to move forward, would really do more analysis, you know, with your, you know, with your council or whoever your appointed person would be, to really look at, you know, what customers you have right now, what customers you might be able to, customers being industrial or commercial type load, to look at that. That's not it sounds like a simple question, but it's probably a little more complicated, and that's outside really our expertise on this call. But we do have people that, you know, could assist with that analysis, to move forward.
And I would say when we did this in 2018, we kind of gamed out a scenario that would pay for what we did, the 20 million that we basically figured it was going to cost last time. And I believe that was 20 different a variety of 20 different types of companies. So that is something that we could possibly recast, but they were 20 different companies, a few small users, a couple really large users, and then the assortment of the remainder being medium-sized users. But even a medium-sized user is a pretty big user. I mean, it isn't a steel plant like you know, Schnitzer Steel, but it is it would be like a lumber mill drying lumber. It's those kinds of things that are what is going to be needed. And at that time, I know it was 20 of them. And that's where John probably can help you scope that out, if necessary, you know, if you're ready to go a little further. But we can provide a little bit more information, but really without knowing some of the feasibility, it's hard for us to know what that, you know, we need to really know what our costs are before we're, you know, working towards that number. And that's where we did want to kind of list out, and John knows these probably, he probably has forgotten more about these than I'm ever going to know, but there's lots of different pipelines of funds. Now you're going to have to make a case to get them, and that's going to take time and expertise. But you know, state general funds, federal funds around, especially some of the industrial or the American Recovery Act and some of the Rural Investment Act funds that are potentials. There's independent grants out there, state bonds and loans. And then, you know, the working with Business Oregon to identify those sources and figure out what the plan or the stack needs to look like. And for this, John, do you have anything you want to add on that really quick?
No, thank you, Nina. I think you're actually, correct there. I think really good moving forward with the feasibility study, getting that funded, and then, looking at just thinking about the next step of implementation around the political climate and then a funding strategy, some thoughts for the council to think of this. But absolutely, there are funding programs out there. It's just going to take a little pursuing them and working at it.
So kind of to sum this up, I think the key thing would be, if this is something that the city is really serious about, and I know you are, but they're serious, and then there's you know, being able to have staff and funding to be able to put something together, but it's to consider what your story is. Why should Oregon or federal taxpayers invest in Estacada? You know, what are the benefits? I love that you already have identified that increased resiliency, because, you know, typically even when the power is out, a lot of times, you know, your gas fireplace will work, your stove will work, and depending on the kind of equipment, or if you have a backup generator, you can keep yourself, you know, stable while you shelter in place. We know that your industrial park will be much more enticing for development, and that industrial land. I mean, I talk about you guys all the time. You have one of the best spots of industrial land that's not fully developed in our region, and the lack of critical infrastructure is what, you know, it handicaps you from being able to exercise on that. And the one other thing for us to think about, depending on the route, there may or may not be other potential customers along the route that could help share in the expenses of building it. If we can, if the route if there are other entities that would benefit from our product as we build it out, we can add them, and that can help subsidize the cost. And again, don't want to be raining on the parade, but I want you to be really clear-eyed, not necessarily from your county commission, but from outside influences about political opposition from folks that are frankly anti-growth, or from that are very ideologically, environmentally bent. That they're going to have a problem with a large pipeline and bring a large bunch of customers onto a new system. And then being really realistic about the time this is going to take, because the the permitting challenges that we face, especially on these large projects, they're not to be sneezed at.
More questions for the team? No? All right. We thank you. That was very informational. We appreciate having all of you there to answer those questions. I still, you know, want to get to the point of this. I think that Estacada needs this alternative. Now, I know the cost seems outrageous, and the political hype that you're talking about is really crazy out there. But this is for other reasons. Right now, the cost of power, as you know, has gone up extremely. People are suffering all over, and we need an alternative. And this is not just about our industrial park. This is about the future of Estacada. We're going to have to start thinking in that direction, whatever that takes. And if that means going to the state and pleading our case, we're going to have to do that. So I'd like you to keep us in mind. And if you hear of anything that'll make this easier on us, please help us with this, because we
And,
are
you know,
serious.
If I had two pieces of advice for you politically, I would reach out to Clackamas County and talk to, I know Chair Smith would be very sympathetic to this plight. They do have government affairs folks. And I would really push on your League of Oregon Cities because frankly, there is need for a state level fund for communities to be able to tap for this infrastructure that they need to become a balanced budgetary community, and to have the economic opportunity for their residents that other larger cities have. So I would really work with your League of Oregon Cities. I would work with the chair and her government affairs folks, and see what can be done there. And then, you know, what other outside experts. We are here, we're partners. I'll take your call at any time to strategize on where other places you might look at. And then also bring in Business Oregon, because it's those folks who really see the variety of opportunities out there for funding. It's going to be tough, but I'm not saying it's impossible. But I really want to thank you for your time, and we're always welcome to have these conversations, because one of these times we're going to get to yes.
It's going to
That's
work.
right.
It's going to work. Melanie, go ahead.
All right, I just wanted to say, this is Melanie, city manager. I just wanted to say thank you, Nina. Thank you, Andrea and John, for being here tonight. And this is something maybe the council wants to consider as in the next month or so, we're going to be asking for upcoming priorities as we're working towards our January goal setting workshop. And if I could work with John, and we could figure out what we might want to task to the Economic Development Commission, or what staff could begin working on to start working on those beginning steps, because this sounds like it's going to be a multi-phase, multi-year project, but we need to start at some point to move it forward. And so there'll just be a question that I'll probably be asking you.
Okay, great.
And this might be one of the topics you want to talk about at your goal setting.
All right, thank you.
So,
And it's always good to see you guys, so we appreciate having you come out. And I hope I
Yeah.
can see you again real soon, so.
Thank you. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Hey, do we still have John on there? Is he left too?
He left too.
Okay. All right. Well, you've had a chance to listen to it, guys, or anything you'd like to talk about before I move on to the next thing that concerns you about any of this?
I just think it's important that we look at the options. Obviously, it's gonna be expensive, and I understand that, but at some point, somebody's got to set the precedence to say enough is enough. And then, they kept mentioning and referencing cost and about how all the opposition that's gonna be against it, but the truth is, none of that opposition, or hardly, I won't say none, but very little of that opposition is the one that's pocketbooks being impacted by the lack of availability for that here, by being forced to use one source for heat versus having options, for some of the houses, especially in the newer developments that don't even have propane wired to them.
Yeah.
Right, so I just think that I don't think we should jump in this. We got a lot of other things going as well, but I do think that this would be a great target to put on our sites to attack, to see what we could get done for this community long-term, right?
Fair enough. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. I think we got to look for alternatives. As our city grows, we have to have options. I just can't afford the rate we're going at right now. And that's the fact of it. It's not political. It's not anything else. It's about the dollar that we're seeing at the post office. I opened my electric bill today, where it used to be, $130. Now it's $230. That's got to be hard on people. And I know it is because they've told me it is.
Yeah.
So the idea that we need alternatives is there. Whether we get it today or tomorrow or next year, we have to start the process before we can get down that road, Jerry.
So my concern is that, if we do go down this route, I don't want the cost of this, especially if it comes out to be majority, for the industrial park. I don't want the cost of this to go on to the taxpayers, to the city. Because that in turn is taking that money that they might save by going to natural gas, but they're still spending it, if we're asking the taxpayers to help pay to get this out here. So
I completely agree. And my fight would be with the state of Oregon more so than anything else, because I've been there before. It's fighting for the importance out here. I mean, they don't see Estacada as a priority, but believe you me, we are. And I want them to hear it.
Yeah.
So anybody else have anything? No? Okay. Thank Mike.
I'll say the prices probably aren't going to get better with PG if they're going to have to cut out a third of their power production, one of the most economical forms of their power production by 2030, and you're increasing demand by pushing electric cars and other things of that nature. I can't imagine it's going to get any better over the next 6 years. So it's probably going to get extremely worse. So.
All right. Thank you for that. Anybody else?
I just think, I think it's important, to echo what Jerry was saying, I think we look at this from the angle of private funding as well, and just different things. There's got to be, I know that this is going to take creative solutions, but I agree that it shouldn't be a burden on the taxpayers. But I think if we put our heads together, we could come up with some way to alleviate some of this. There's,
Complete agreement.
it's going to be hard, but that's not
But
a
not
hard
impossible.
stop, right? So.
Not impossible. Yes, Pete.
I think it might be a good idea to let Business Oregon know that we're really interested in this, because they might be aware of potential companies that, if that would then make Northwest Natural say, okay, if this large manufacturer that's going to go on a 50-acre parcel and needs natural gas is going to Estacada, then we need to figure out how to get them the natural gas, because that brings in the customer base they want. So just at least letting them know that we would advocate, the SK would advocate for this, if there is that user.
Okay. I like that idea. So let's do that. I think that's a good thing going forward, and that's something that you would handle, Melanie.
Yes, I can connect with John, and we can reach out to Business Oregon and bring more information back.
Great. Thank you very much for that. All right, moving along, we are at citizen and community group comment. And right now I have one in front of me. Chantel, is that how you say that? Chantel, sorry about that. Go up to the mic here and you have 3 minutes.
Well, he's trying to give you.
Oh, okay.
He's in the back. Oh, he's going.
Go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you for letting me come up and speak tonight. I just want to say that I am a new resident of Estacada. I've lived in Oregon for almost 10 years. I've lived in Malala for most of that time. I am a new homeowner, so it's great to be here in Estacada. But one of my first experiences here in Estacada was very disappointing. Your garbage service, Walker service, was very rude to me. The treatment and the continued treatment that I have had from Walker service has been very rude and disappointing. The first week that I moved here, I called 3 times and left a voicemail each time and was not received a phone call back. The 4th time I called, which was a week and a half later, after continually calling every other day, I finally got an answer. And when I spoke to the lady, instead of getting a clear and concise message about what services they had, what it cost, what I was going to pay for each month, what my account was going to be sent to by mail, by email, any of that information was not given to me in a clear way. I was given a life story for 40 minutes telling me what the business had gone through, what she was experiencing, what this cost was going to be, except for I got 4 different types of costs. And I've never experienced that, not from one business, not at all from a business that runs an entire community of service. And then I was told to drop a check off at City Hall. I was given no other option for payment, not by cash or, well, she said cash or check, but there was no online option. There was no other option other than me to just drop a simple check off with no account information of where my check was going to go and when I knew it was going to be cashed, other than me consistently checking my bank account. 2 months later, I still did not have my check cashed, and I kept checking. And personally, I am a teacher that works in Malala River School District. And as you most may know, teachers don't get paid very well. And so I live on a monthly budget, and I did not see that check being cashed. And so I called and I said, look, I still have not seen my check cashed. I have not gotten any account information. I was not treated very nicely from her. She was snarky with me. She was rude. She told me, well, are you getting service? And I said, well, yes, but I live on a budget and I would like to know if my account is being processed and where my money is going, if my money is going anywhere, if my service will be stopped if you don't cash my check, because where's my check? Is it still at City Hall? Is it in your hand? I don't know that. She was rude with me. She made excuse after excuse about not having accounts set up. When I asked when the accounts were going to be set up, I was threatened that my service would be stopped. And then I still waited a whole nother month before my check was cashed. So I'm very disappointed.
All right. Well, we thank you for that. And we'll look into this and we'll address this issue, but we appreciate you coming out and talking to us tonight. Thank you. Okay. And I'm not sure on the name on this one.
Vincent Bullahumps.
Vincent? Oh, yeah. Okay. You had me going there. Thought it was an alias.
Oh, I just wanted to bring up one quick point since the natural gas people were here earlier.
Yep.
I would have liked to heard some talk about like just the pure safety of it. Like if we actually did have gas in the houses with the wildfires and those types of things, and like what mitigation techniques and stuff they have to mitigate damage if there was to be a wildfire that ever did make it into the city, and how gas utilities would affect us in that way. I understand it wouldn't be as big of an issue if it was in the industrial park, but I would have liked to hear more of how that would be addressed and just the environmental impact of having natural gas within the city limits.
Okay.
So just from experience, there's cutoffs for gas. There would probably be multiple cutoffs between there and here when it came out. So they have that plan in place to where, if there's a fire that's approaching the city, they can cut it off at a certain point, a safe distance from the city to where.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. It would have been nice to hear like some details behind that. Would have been great.
All right. Thank you. Okay, I don't have any more in front of me. Anybody, Wally, you have one? Surely you have one. We'll bring him up here.
I'm speaking in rebuttal for walkers, okay? Walkers, I've had walkers for 20 years. I've had problems, but they've always, Janet passed away. That's one thing that started this whole business problem. Then they had to go to court to get their business back because Errol and whoever were trying to take their business. So they're back on it. They got told that they have to do the large yard debris. They had no choice, so they had to do that. They had to hire new help, and they have to train all this help. So if you guys have a problem with walkers, you need to call John or Mark. And Mark is the owner. I don't know what's going on, if that's Kim that was causing this problem or some new person. But Walkers has been in this town as long as I can remember, and they've always been good. They're great with us. If I forget my garbage, they'll go pick it out in my back by my house and bring it to the street and put it in there. So there's always a second story to why a business is struggling. I mean, Janet died, and it's taken Mark and them 6 months to get this business up and going. So that, I mean, if they have a problem, call Mark, call John, and they'll take care of it. Thank you.
Who's Janice, by the way? Is that, you mean Judy?
Judy, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, be going there.
Janet was her sister. I'm sorry, Judy.
Okay.
Anyway, Judy, but Walkers have done a great job and stuff, you know, and they're really great with, technically, they're great with my animals, period. So, thank you.
All right. We appreciate you, Shirley. Thank you. Wally.
Good evening, everyone. I got a couple concerns I'd like to bring to your attention. You've probably heard the recent string of ballot boxes that have been vandalized in our area. And when I say our area, I've heard Portland, Vancouver. I don't know about Clackamas County itself, but it kind of jeopardizes the integrity of our voting system. And I'd like to know, is there anything specifically that is being done now to protect our ballot boxes out here at the library and also out here at City Hall? The other question in regards to that is, how often are these ballots picked up and retrieved and taken to the election headquarters? I don't know if anybody can answer that question.
I'm not sure, Melanie.
Can
What
I-
timeline
yeah.
be when they pick up?
They come by at least every day now that they're right. And do they come a couple times a day sometimes? Because I don't see them out my window, but the front office does see them coming and picking up ballots. So they're very consistent about that. And we did internally make some changes about how the ballot boxes are monitored. And so I don't really care to say that at this time, the changes that we've made, but we have made some adjustments today in awareness of those issues that are happening. And so
Are there any cameras located at either one of
we
these
do have
boxes?
cameras. Yes, we have
Okay.
some cameras.
That's good to
Mhm.
know. The other topic that I'd like to bring to your attention, it's kind of been a very hot Facebook topic here the last couple of weeks. It's in regards to the urban growth that we're experiencing in this area. Naturally, you probably are well aware of the concern that a lot of our citizens have. Put the cart in front of the horse, and not having our infrastructure being able to support the rapid growth that we're seeing out there. So I know all the legal issues that are involved with it. I know there's some here that feel one way or another about it, but I'd like to ask each one of the counselors, so we could start with Jerry here. It's a yes or no question. Are you doing anything to either slow, pause, or stop the growth in our community?
There's nothing I can do.
So that's a no. Jonathan?
No.
You're not supposed to be addressing each counselors individually, according to council rules.
So I take that as a no from you. Michael?
No.
Paul?
No.
I know where our mayor stands on this, so we'll go over to,
Nope.
okay, I guess that answered my question. Thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, that's all the forms I have in front of me. We're moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have anybody that wishes to change anything on the consent agenda or move it to council business? If not, can I get a motion on the floor?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
And I'll second.
Okay, I have a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. Okay, department and committee reports, quarterly commissions report.
All right, we have a few of those that were submitted in the packet in writing. One that got submitted late, I didn't get it in the packet in time. And so it's being added to the packet, but it's been handed out. I don't know that anybody came in person to speak. Oh, for Parks and Rec. Okay, we do have Parks and Rec to provide a quick update. If you want to do that now, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I would have done the written one, but the email it went to is on my desktop and not my phone, so I didn't see it till today. But quick update for the parks. What we've been up to is we got through the concerts in the park, which was great, had good turnout, new bands. It was pretty good. We just did the trick or trot, had about 80 kids show up. The cheerleaders came out and raised money for whatever cheerleader stuff they need. And then the dance studio came out and sold hot chocolate and cookies to raise money for the dance studio, which is nice. Our new impromptu event for the winter, we're going to be doing a movie at the community center, which we'll be doing. We'll choose the holiday movie at the next meeting. But we should have same thing, Coco, probably the cheerleaders will be doing cotton candy. And then we might have like the popcorn vendor and a hot dog vendor come out. And so that'll be good for next month. A couple things about the parks. They put up the fence for the dog park, but they still need to remove all the old horseshoe equipment and then put down chips and stuff like that, which would be great. But I'm glad we did the fence, and it looks great. The Wade Creek fence looks awesome. The only other park, we were at Campanella doing the trick or trot. The chips are getting a little bit low, and you can see quite a bit of the sidewalk still around the play area. So we might want to refill that.
Thanks for that heads up.
And then we're getting the Sprint into Spring run, the 5K officially UFCA or whatever the regulation board is approving it. So we'll have a fully timed, you can track your time runs through the city, which will be great. And yeah, that's pretty much what we've been doing for the last quarter and what we got going next quarter. So,
all right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that. Hey. You've all had a chance to peruse the other committees. They've all put it in your packet. So if there's any questions. Okay. We'll give you a city manager's.
All right, I just have a quick little report here. Just a couple of slides to share. I meant to do this previously, but wanted to let you know that we did put out those door hangers about water conservation. They were in a bag and they had these 2 brochures and they were delivered to neighborhoods that have where everybody pretty much has a yard sprinkler system. So that's where we targeted to drop those off. And I also included a letter from the city manager with information on what the city's doing to reduce water waste. We noted the tiered water rate structure that's going to go into effect in January of the new year. And if somebody did not receive a packet because they didn't happen to be in one of those targeted neighborhoods, you can definitely, we have these brochures here on the residential landscape water audits. Maybe somebody's retrofitted a sprinkler system into their yard and would be interested in that. They're extremely helpful from all the feedback that I've heard of people who have had them done. And then also we have rebates for indoor and outdoor water that anybody who is on the Estacada water system can use. So if you didn't receive a door hanger bag, feel free to call City Hall. We'll get some of those out to you. And then I wanted to highlight the remaining council meetings because we're really racing towards the end of the year here. This is our second meeting in October tonight. So we have typically 1 meeting in November and 1 in December. The one in November would fall on November 11th, which is Veterans Day. So we're going to push that forward to November 18th. And then we'll have our very last meeting on December 9th with probably some kind of a celebratory thing for Councilor Hughes and Councilor Strobel. So that will be their final meeting with us in this term that they're ending. So I wanted to highlight that because it'll be a little different in November. Okay, And then there were some questions asked at the last council meeting 2 weeks ago about the wastewater treatment facility that is in development. And so I answered those questions, sent them out to the person who was asking them and copied city council on that. But we also put those on a white paper that are on our website. If you go to cityofestacada.org, that's the link, but it's kind of long. So if you just scroll down to projects, click on more projects, and you'll find the wastewater facility if anybody wants to read that. And I think that is all tonight.
Okay, thank you. Peter, do you have anything you want?
Yeah, I have a few things. As I want to make the community aware of this, I know all of you are. Since Governor Kotek declared a housing emergency and is trying to get 100,000 units over the next 3 years, if land is in our urban growth boundary, if it has residential zoning, and if we can provide urban services to the housing, we have to provide them. So thank you for answering no, because if you had answered yes, I would have had a little bit concerned about potential liability, which is always what I worry about. Also wanted to give a brief update on the Lakeshore apartment, just because there's a lot of information going around, and I want to make sure that people have accurate information. We still, as of today, to my knowledge, do not have a complete application. So we are still waiting for the water suppression system information, as well as the fire alarm system information. Some people have said, what is why? Well, they do have a complete application. The person was their lawyer. And I said, no, it's not us that come up with this list. It's the Oregon Structural Specialty Code, defines what constitutes a complete application. It's governed by state law. And so it's uniform in every city in the state. There are some slightly different rules if you have a phased development. So if you're to do like 5 office buildings in an office park, you were to do them one at a time. That can impact when things are due, but this is not a phased development. And there are also some special rules around very low density stuff like a single family house or a low density apartment. But again, that's not our scenario here. So what we're doing is, so I was in touch with him multiple times last week as well as today. And staff has been getting a lot of emails. And my preference is that people are asking them to make representations. I've said we're not making any representations, and any representations need to come through me, because I don't want someone later in time saying, oh yeah, we were promised this, we were promised that. Nobody's been promised anything. So again,
how much time do they have left on their timeline to get this done?
November 9th is the deadline for the building permits to be complete. They might still have some, they won't have been processed fully yet, but they need to be completely submitted by November 9th.
right. Yeah. So again, we treat everyone the same. We're going to treat everyone fairly. We're going to require the same information of everyone that has this type of, if you have a commercial project, you're going to be required to provide the same information in the same manner. So that's what we're doing. But given the amount of kind of traffic on this issue, I just wanted you all to be aware of where we were.
All right. Any questions for Peter?
I just want to say thank you for highlighting that and for telling people so that they don't have to try to figure it out or read between the lines. Thank you for just stating what is. I know communication is something we've all been working on extremely hard over this year, and I appreciate the gesture there. And Melanie, thank you for adding that to the page about what's going on with the wastewater treatment and open that up for people to have access directly to what we know as we know it. So I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you both. Now we're going on to council business. And the first item we have on council business is the water master plan adoption. You've all had a chance to read it, I hope. It was
Yes.
wonderful reading on the weekend. Go ahead.
All right. So you did get Kurt had us print, or he printed this hard copy for you, thinking it might be easier. The executive summaries in the front, and then the backup data is all behind that. So just wanted to let you know that if you have any questions, I know there was some that came through and that I was able to answer earlier. But if you have other questions, we're happy to discuss this. What the process is on this is it gives us basically a timeline and a process for how we need to upgrade our water treatment system over the next couple of years. I just learned from, I probably should have known this already, but Chris told me today that when we upgraded the plant in 1999, 2000, it was about $2.5 million, which back then would have been a good chunk of change to upgrade. So it's been a good almost 25 years. And this is just outlining what our needs will be projected to be and how we'll accomplish that. And so once this is approved by the council, we'll send it over to the Oregon Health Authority. They review it and we'll send it back. And then Kurt and potentially Ed will come from Kern McLeod and talk about it again with the council and get ready for adoption. So are there any questions or discussion that you wanted to have tonight?
I just want to get a chance to ask Kurt what the thinking was behind. It looks like we're proposing $14 million for the upgrades in the water system.
Mhm.
And that's to increase production by 75% from the current production levels. We're spending 98.3% of that $14 million on increasing the production by 75%. We're losing 37% of is getting wasted from leaks in the
Yes,
system.
and we are, yes.
And we're
working
spending,
on that.
we're proposing to spend 1.7% of the $14 million on addressing the 37% loss. And so my thought pattern is just, I think we need to invest more in the loss. I'm not saying that we need to cut anything out of the production to meet the needs, the future needs of it, but I just like to see what the plan is for getting that. We're on the wrong trajectory. So over the last 4 years, we were at like 34% loss, 35% loss, 36% loss, and now we're at 37% loss. That's going the wrong direction. So I would like to see a bigger investment in the water that we're losing. Kurt had mentioned a system where they can put meters at different places throughout the system to identify where those leaks are happening at, and then we can address the issues in those locations. I would like to see what the numbers look like to fully install that system in our current infrastructure that we have, where we're experiencing all those losses, and what the plan is for addressing future losses. Like if there's something in our requirements, code requirements for the water system that needs to be upgraded to eliminate those losses in the future. I just don't want to, if the way we're building right now is not working, and that's if it's the current construction that's issue, if it's construction from 50 years ago, that's the main issue, and it's already been addressed by the new code requirements, then great. But if it's not, if there's something we're currently putting in the ground that we're instantly having these losses in, I just wanted to get a little more information about that.
And I'm glad that you brought that up. And I appreciate the support for that because there is $250,000 in there to do those studies, to find out where the leaks are. Because as Kurt would say, and he would have been happy to be here tonight, but I felt like there wasn't, I felt like I could answer your questions. If not, I'll get him on the phone. But yeah, a gallon of water not wasted is one more that, we're using. And so it's increasing our capacity to cut that loss. And the goal is to get down to 10%. That is a kind of a pipe dream, no pun intended, but we can get at least to 15%. And we're going to be working our way down there and using that $250,000 that he's got budgeted for that. Don's already working on that. He's had some contractors come out to talk about different systems. We shut down there was a very old pipe that went across the mill property. He's decommissioned that already. And so we're aggressively taking care of the leaks and we'll be seeking those out. And that's a good question. I would say, like off the top of my head, I would say the leaks are coming from the old part of town, which is probably mostly the case. However, there could be things, that didn't get put together correctly in new parts too. So they'll be checking on all of that. And that will buy us time when we can stop wasting water. We're also going to check our meters. He was talking with Chris today about testing some bench testing meters to make sure that they're accurately recording the amount of water that's going through them. So we are on that. Yes.
One other quick, I would like to see when they put together that plan,
Mhm.
something that addresses with over the next 10 years in these improvements, something that within 10 years, we will be able to tell Dawn and those guys will be able to say, hey, this is where the leak's happening. This is
Okay.
where it's leaking like a sieve in this section. This is where we need to focus on improvements. Because not knowing where you need to make repairs is, I mean, we're gonna be, if we don't put something in place to address that, we're gonna have huge issues going forward. And I just see a big value in eliminating the waste
Yes.
as part of the plan for being ready for it. Because the population numbers that they were using, I mean, if just the approved subdivisions that are on the books right now get built out and sold over the next 10 years, we're at the 20-year if you do 3.1
Yeah.
people per household,
Could happen faster. than it's
just the
predicted.
current, yeah, we're gonna be at that 20, we're gonna be at the 2045 population numbers that were used in the projections. And I don't know if those got taken straight out of PSU's projections that we were disappointed with, but I know that they were instantly wrong from the time that they were provided to us. So I just worry that the other question I had for Kurt with his response is just if we hit the population numbers for 2045 by 2035, does the plan that we have in place take care of all the residents of the community? Are we going to be in a good place to be able to produce the water needed for all the citizens of Estacada if we hit the population numbers for 2045 and 2035? Because I think that's more realistic, that that's what the population's.
I think looking at that in the executive summary, I think it could definitely happen. We could be 10 years ahead of schedule based on this. But then is it going to continue to grow or is it going to plateau? So we'll have to evaluate at that point because at that point, that's what we've aimed for is the 20-year plan. And that shows an average annual daily use of about 1.5 million gallons a day, which is like twice what we have now. And a peak day of 2.9 million, which would be, the peak day. So we have, Kurt says 3 peak days a year. It depends on the summer. I think we could have a couple more than that, where we really hit that high number before it kind of bounces around in the summertime. So that would be we rely on redundancy, which is having our storage reservoirs full and usable, and that provides the carryover. So we might not keep those full every day. They might drain down over 2 or 3 days. And then typically the water usage kind of goes like this. And then we would be able to catch up and refill those reservoirs. So, but that would put us 10 years ahead of the plan and we would have to reevaluate. Yes.
Sure.
So I know all of us feel the same way. We're a little bit gun shy on these big estimates, on these big price estimates. So my question is who put this estimate together? And I mean, is it a possibility that, we're going to come back the next time we see this, it's going to be $28 million, $40 million?
It's really hard. It's hard to tell the future, but that's what things tend to do. They tend to go up. Kurt did put this estimate together. And when it comes time to, in the next several months, hire it. We'll have to put this out to do an RFQ for engineers because it's such a large project. Kerr McLeod is very interested in doing this job for us, but they would have to compete amongst other engineering firms to do that, even though they're our city engineer. So it could, and we should be building this in the next couple of years. So it hopefully in a couple of years wouldn't go up terribly high, but I mean, I don't have a crystal ball on that.
Just
Yeah,
in
it
a
could
couple of
happen.
months, we went from 40
Mhm.
million to 72. So I'm a little leery
I know.
looking at large numbers now. And like I said, I know the rest of you guys
Mhm.
probably feel the same. So.
Yeah, I can't make promises on this, that's for sure.
Jonathan and then Paul.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I like what Councilman Macro is saying about making sure that we focus on the maintenance and saving water versus, like current leaks and things like that versus prioritizing just building out a new system as well. I do agree that we need it. You have no argument from me on that, but when I look at this, like I have the same questions. Is this projection on population from the same PSU one that was putting us in a place that, I mean, we're already going to surpass what
Very unrealistic.
the numbers that were given to us the first time. And then I just had a curiosity here, if we attack the maintenance end of this first, what would the timeline on that being, like seeing actionable, measurable results on that? And then, for some of the summertime stuff where we're looking at telling the people to they can't water their
Conserve.
yards and stuff like that anymore, like
That all
with
counts, yeah.
addressing maintenance, right? Would that take us out of that? We're going over on the peak day with with addressing some of the leakage?
It could that will definitely help. So I think that I need to just pass that information along to Don, that while he's getting information from contractors and looking at ways to accomplish this, he can come with me and bring a plan back to the council. This is how we're going to address our water loss. Because I think the goal was to reduce it by 1% per year, and that's just not sufficient. And I think that we can take bigger chunks of that by having a good plan. So we'll be bringing that back to you.
And we're required by state law to use PSU's population
Mhm.
estimates.
But we do know, I would.
But we
hazard a
get
guess
to,
we're
we
gonna
get to
grow.
true up every 3 years.
Mhm.
Now that we're over 5,000, then we get census estimates. So we'll be able to take the houses built as well as the US Census numbers, go to PSU and get them to revise our growth numbers.
Tonight, though, you're looking for just approval or consensus or a motion. We're ultimately sending this to Oregon Health Authority for their review. Is that what we're looking to do? So we need some
Yeah,
sort
so
of
like a
council.
motion, a council motion, to see if there's,
Authorize us to send it.
yeah, motion to authorize to send the draft plan to the OHA for their review.
So with that in mind, the questions that Counselor McRoy had, I mean, is that a stopping point or for sending it to them for their review, or do we need to get some things ironed out here?
We would want to know when we send it that we anticipate, because this is just for comments, then they send it back for us, and then we have a deeper dive. So we want to add a note that says that our council wants to prioritize minimizing loss within our system and to come up with benchmarks, and we would work with our engineer in order to come up with that program, and that program we could then, after their comments, put that into this. But this way they know, because we have a really high percentage loss. And if I were OHA, one of the first questions I would ask are, hey, what are you guys going to do about this loss? Particularly if you're looking for additional water rights. So yeah.
I should have pointed out also, I just got notification today that our water management and conservation plan just got approved at the state. So it's back to us so we can start implementing that, that will help us out too.
Couple quick ones. I just want to validate that Kurt's using not textbook numbers for his estimates on that he's actually using like current material pricing within the last 12 months when he's producing an estimate for us. That seemed to be one of the places got derailed with Kennedy Jenks using, I don't know, Sladen called it textbook numbers that are different than reality. I just want to make sure that all estimates that come to the council are using current material pricing, adjusted for inflation, never giving us a number that's 5 years old.
He did not put an adjustment for inflation in here. But he can talk about that when he did tell me where he got these numbers today, and I can't remember what it was called, but we got to realize this is just an estimate for today. He has a good frame of reference for what else is going on, like other cities who are putting in this type of a system now. So, but it's anyone's guess when we actually get to it. Yes.
I have another. And the other question was the membrane system that's being used for the water filtration. Are we going to be held hostage by one producer? Like the membrane system for the wastewater treatment facility is produced by one company in one country. What happens if they say, no, they don't want to sell it to us? And do we have a plan in place to buy enough membrane to be able to operate so that if there was supply chain issues, increased demand for that particular membrane where the market just starts going crazy and it triples in price, are we going to be exposed to that? Or do we have a plan in place to be able to acquire membranes? If it may not be the same problem as the wastewater treatment, but I just know it came up with a
Kurt did
treatment
say that
facility.
they are proprietary. So once you pick a path, that's what you stick with. And so we need to choose that carefully. But he also said that the reason we're just putting the two million gallon membranes in there is because it's very expensive to have a third one just sitting there that you don't ever use, but you have it there just in case. But we compensate for that by having the additional parts on hand, having ways to repair that, things that might need to get replaced. You can have those available versus having to buy a whole new system or spend so much money on redundancy by having that extra part. But you're right. It is, once you start down a path of who's supplying it, it's a proprietary type of an issue.
I just like to know what the shelf life of those are, the membranes. Like if you have the membranes on hand for replacing one when one goes bad, what the shelf life is for it, because they're not going to get cheaper.
Right.
They're only going to get more expensive. And so if
We bought them now.
shelf life and the cost associated with it, to see if we got a 20-year supply of membranes, if they would have the shelf life to stay good for that period of time. And then look at, with inflation, what buying them now looks like compared to buying them when we need them 15 years from now, to see if there's a cost benefit to go ahead and acquiring those early.
Okay, I could ask about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting thought to think about pre-purchasing for, but is the technology going to change between now and 15 years from now, 20 years from now? But that's something that he's probably up on all of that. So if we send this to HOA, let them get some eyes on it, and then Kurt will come back and we can strategize how we want to implement it. But it was something that is going to need, we'll work on the water loss. But then this is like when Kurt and I and Chris were talking today, we're talking winter of 26, 27. So that's like 2 years from now, starting to, because we have to do it in the low water season. And we could potentially push it to the 27, 28, no, 26, let's see, 26, 27. So it'd be 27, 28. Can't believe we're talking in those numbers right now, but yeah, it'll be in the next 2-3 years maximum, preferably 2 years to do this. So it's coming up.
Only one question I want to ask too. Have we approached Q out in the industrial? Because this is what they do for municipals. They go to cities and they research their pipes. They actually put cameras down there and they run surveys on all the pipe in those cities to find out where leaks are and where they're having, inconsistencies in their sewer plants and everything. That's what they do. That's their livelihood. And they do it for several cities. I've checked up on them. So it seems to me that when we're checking these pipes, maybe checking them in a way such as that with a camera and stuff like that would give us a better idea of which ones are seriously damaged. So it might be something we want to approach them.
Okay, I can check in with Don on that. I know we do TV the lines.
Yeah.
Usually those are sewer lines. I don't know that if they I don't know how you TV the water lines, but Q might be a company that he's used, but maybe not. So I will pass that on.
Use smoke.
Typically
For water
pressure,
lines, yeah.
typically pressure tested for water lines. At least when you're bringing new ones online, it's
Right, this
it's
is
pressure tested.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, but I can
All
check
right.
on that, yeah.
So how should this motion read?
We want to move to send the draft water master plan to Oregon Health Authority for their review and comment.
With changes?
With recommendations, with
comments.
with comments that would prioritize water, repairing water loss, minimizing
Okay.
water loss.
So moved.
Yeah.
Got that, Sadie?
You got a second?
He said second, yeah.
Okay, got a second. Okay, so I got a first and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. I just want to say a quick thanks to McElroy here. Half the questions he just asked, I would have never asked because I didn't know enough about it, but he seems to have brought quite a bit of knowledge to the table, which can be appreciated. All these counselors are great. But when one counselor brings up every question that I think you could answer about a particular thing, to me, that was insane. So I just want to thank him for that. Going forward, appreciate you. Thank you. Okay, moving on, we are at the downtown design review.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm just going to hand this over to Alan to give you a quick
Yeah,
2-sentence kickoff on this or however you want to present
yeah,
it.
sure. So good evening, council. I don't have a presentation or anything. I just wanted to be here for the discussion and field any questions you guys might have.
All right.
Yeah.
Any questions at the table on the downtown review?
I have more of a comment on
Yeah.
disregard. Never mind.
Okay, well,
So what we go through tonight, this would be more for any future changes, right? This wouldn't be affecting any structures that have been built, put into place now, correct? Or-
Yeah, that's right. So right now, the downtown design review is only triggered in cases of external renovations or for new construction. And that would continue. There is the idea that for the transparency element, that we could expand that to also apply to new structure or to, what is it, for interior renovations that affect window transparency. So that's just was put on the table, just based on discussions that I've had and staff's experience with processing these reviews.
We've been enforcing, we enforce the transparency kind of inconsistently. Is because we can easily enforce if somebody's going to remodel or build and make sure they have windows. The goal is to not to highlight, negatively businesses in our downtown, but like Dollar General has they have murals on there. It looks great, but a solid wall with no windows. High School Pharmacy, kind of the same thing. The bigger buildings, they do have that, but then we have smaller buildings that they house educational things or medical things, and they'll put curtains or they'll put the like where you can't see, frosting where you can't see through because for security or for privacy. And those we haven't been, it's like we have this transparency element that we would enforce if somebody was building or remodeling, but it really isn't having any effect. And is that okay? Is that all right if with the council, what's your vision? Would you like us to require downtown design review for any kind of a remodel interior or a realignment that's going to cover up windows? Do we need to insist that those windows have transparency, or is that getting too much into managing what's going on inside? I know I think you've all had different experiences with different types of businesses down there that might need to, or even like the restaurant is on the sunny side of the street and they're going to close their blinds all afternoon in the summer. So what are we could include interior things and make sure that it's open all the time, or we could just leave it as it is and just worry about the actual structure of the building. So we'd like direction on that.
So I guess this is where my initial response with the comment comes from and I don't mean it in any disrespectful format or anything like that, because I do understand that we're trying to address this, but the way I see this is if you can read the code and you can interpret it, and I'm going to remodel it and then say I want to sticker my window on the inside for decals for my business or what have you, right? And I can find that I'm not violating the code, then I don't see anything wrong with somebody being able to read between the lines and make an adjustment to get creative in their advertising approach or how they're letting people know that they're there. If we were talking new build or something like that, I think that before the place can open or be issued a business license or even constructed, right, meet plane, it has to meet our design. But I don't personally want to meddle in what
What goes
people,
on inside?
what color their carpet is or their tiles on their floor, what they paint the inside trim to look like. This is where I think it's beautiful in the sense of capitalism to be able to play with what works and find what's going to feed your family and be efficient. So I don't want to meddle in people's, as long as it meets, like when it's built, it meets code, that's fine. But if it goes to the inside and they want to decal it, I think we're messing with too much.
I think that we should have an exemption list for window transparency. We should have an exemption list that, includes medical, welfare, schools, so yeah, I think we need to create that exemption list and put it in the code. But other than that, I mean,
Like to have it, the visible, the transparency.
Yeah, I'm on board with Jerry with that, because I'm just thinking of the incident that happened over at the dance studio a few nights ago. My daughter was dancing and the windows are you can see inside, and sometimes some creepy dude goes walking by and he's looking at little girls dance, and I don't like it. So a lot of parents don't. So I would like to see an exemption list with either, medical, or you have children involved, or, like some sort of, it's more of a safety feature. I mean, I get the pushback on not wanting to have, being able to see inside an establishment, but I think when you see dance studio, you know that it's not a dispensary, so.
And I'm just gonna recuse myself on this issue, because I have a sign company, so it's kind of, hello.
Yeah.
But
I'd like to see it stick with just new build exterior changes, not get involved in interior. And then if there's an issue with enforcement of the transparency code that's on the books right now, adding more burden to the city, making them more involved in it. I don't know how that's going to fix the problem if we can't consistently apply the code to the businesses that are here already. And making anything a longer process. Anything we could do to streamline, eliminate the requirements for putting things in the newspaper for things that don't need to go in the newspaper. I'm on board with that. And then just coming up, I'm on board with Jerry as well with an exemption list. I wouldn't want to see all the windows fogged out in the downtown area. It's not very welcoming.
No.
But if for like the school moving into the old Art Smith building
Yeah.
area, and needing to fog out the windows, that we should have an exemption list, I think, of businesses that would be allowed to do that with the transparency on the windows.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah. As long as you think that the exemption list will make your job easier, I think it's perfect.
I'm fine with that too. And then that last one on here, clarify the repainting of structures with the same or similarly colored paints does not require downtown design review. I think that's a good suggestion too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Does that answer all your questions?
Pretty much, yeah, if we could just get a move.
A
just
motion?
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion on the floor to accept as is? With what, no changes?
Oh, exemption
With
list.
comment, I guess.
And the
Exemption list?
current, the way it reads right now would include the interior renovations, correct?
You mean the way the code reads right now?
Not the
Or
way the
just
code
the-
reads, the proposed changes, if it's accepted in its current form, would add interior renovations to the code,
Yeah,
correct?
we would want to clarify that we were excluding that if that's the consensus of the council.
So I motion to approve with changes, with adding an exemption list and with removing the interior requirements from this proposed.
Okay, yeah, understood.
Yeah, good.
Good.
Okay,
This proposed downtown review.
Second.
first and second, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, thank you much.
Thank you.
So Alan will
EMC
prepare
1626.
code updates that will go to the planning commission
Planning Commission
for
first.
review.
Yep, and then, yeah, I think, what was the timeline here? So could go to Planning Commission, I believe, in December at the earliest, and then, yeah, council in January.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Can I ask Alan a question?
Yeah,
real
go
quick
ahead.
while we got him
Before
here?
you head down.
Alan, just quick update on the planning department. What is the current, if you know, just gut feel would be good enough for me, for
Yeah.
residential and commercial permit applications coming through? What are the timelines currently
Permit,
for those?
That would be Mads. I don't know. I'm trying to think. We have a weekly coordination meeting, and Mads usually gives an update of, I think it's in the tens right now.
Yeah.
It's not,
10 days.
yeah, it's
That's
not a
what they
huge
told me.
number, but
10 days?
yeah, Mads would be the person to talk to.
That's great. Yeah, if I can, if next time we have a meeting, if you could have that information for me, I'd appreciate
Okay.
it. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, sure.
And are we still using Northwest Code Pros?
Yes.
For the plan review? Is the plan to keep that in place for the near future?
I think so.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. In fact,
Any-
we will.
Any
we'll-
issues with them at all? Everything's going smooth with them?
Everything is going smoothly right now. We are planning we haven't got it on the calendar yet, but we're planning a little day trip down to Eugene. We've never been to their office or met them. Like we see our inspectors that come out here. We've had meetings, they've come up here, but we're gonna go down and do kind of a little workshop together to make sure that everything is going smoothly, do a little flow chart of who's responsible for what and some clarifications and.
Couple quick questions for them when you guys go down there, if
Okay.
I could, is just, do we have a dedicated person that's handling our workload for permits that are coming through here? Will we be impacted by influx and like if they get overwhelmed with several municipalities bringing in permits that they're doing plan review on? Are we going to be impacted by that, or do we have a dedicated person that's going to keep our timelines the same?
I can answer that if you
Yeah.
want. We do have we have 2 dedicated people. And then we have an electrical inspector and what's the others? The plumbing and, no, they do, the Skylar and Chris do plumbing also. So we have our own dedicated people, but if we get an influx, they can spread that out through their department, or if other cities, as it kind of goes, they have the capacity versus us having our 1 or 2 employees here who are doing the plan reviews and such. They do get busy, but they can spread that out amongst their employees and keep us on track.
So we have had some communication issues that we've been working to resolve. So it came up about a year ago, and then we had something come up a bit more recently.
I had a couple of issues.
Yeah.
Not unsolvable though.
I think that's, those timelines that you guys are quoting is something to be proud of. I'm really proud of the planning department for being able to be able to process permits in that time. And it's something that I think we should put on like an average. If we took an average every 30 days for the timelines for residential and commercial, put that on the website somewhere and market that a little bit to companies like commercial businesses that are moving in to the area. If they know that that is the timeline that they're dealing with permits compared to waiting 2.5 years in Portland, you're going to move a business you need to move into a 20,000 square foot facility, and you can either wait 2 years for permits or 10 days. I mean, that's a huge selling point to get companies to come out here, and we're working on trying to attract businesses in through the Economic Development Committee. And that's a big selling point. I mean, that's unheard of. There's no place I can't think of any place within a couple 100 miles that's putting out numbers like that. So great job. I'm really proud of you guys.
Well,
for
thanks.
that
I will
aspect.
pass that on to Mads, and I'll also get this information and try to bring those to council.
Yeah.
So just
Thank you, Alan.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next on the list, I have EMC 2.14.040 board appointment clarification. So
All right, and on this one, we're just asking for council interpretation, really. I had made an assumption that I didn't really clarify with you. So when we're talking about the youth members that we set up this year for the commissions to get a youth member, I kind of put that in my mind as like, this is just a youth member that doesn't really apply to all of the code requirements that a regular committee member would. The 2 areas that we need to know how you want us to apply that to youth is, number 1, ordinarily for our commissioners, they're not allowed to have more than 1 person in a household on one committee at a time. And that was, we believe, mainly instituted to avoid lack of a quorum, because if somebody's on a trip, then they're probably both gone. If somebody gets sick, they could be, both out sick. And so that's, I think, why that got implemented. It's been working well. However, I didn't apply that to youth because I figured sometimes if youth are getting dragged along by a parent, their parents are already going, it's not an extra trip, they're more likely to get it and participate. But maybe maybe we want them to learn, like, hey, this is how it goes. You're on a committee. No other family members or household members are going to be on that committee with you, and that's fine. Either way is fine. But do you want us to apply that to the youth members as far as the number of household members on a committee? And then secondly, we have a requirement that if a board member is absent for 2 consecutive meetings, they may be removed from the committee. Unexcused, or like, we don't know where they are, they didn't show up, they didn't call. That's kind of, we haven't had to remove anybody for that reason. But thinking of youth members, they might be really active in the spring and summer, and then boom, they play football or something, and they're out for, they might miss 3 meetings during football season, and then boom, they're back in, come the end of November or whatever, and they're engaged the rest of the time. So again, in council interpretation, how do you want to apply that to youth members?
Well, my own personal view of that. If you could offer me, a couple meetings and then football off, I'd love it.
You don't
but-
get that.
But with the kids coming into government, you have to understand how government works. And I don't think you can really understand how government works unless you be the government. Understand the rules and regulations of sitting on this board so that they understand going forward when they commit someday to being our new officials, what they're going to give up to be that official and what they're going to gain by being that official, because that's exactly what it is. And I think they need to understand that at this level. So going forward, it's very clear. I think that will help them in government to help push them along and know what you have to sacrifice to be a part of it. So how do you feel?
Yeah, I would say on the same household requirement, I think that's, I would say not just for the youth, but for any non-voting member of a committee that's participating, as long as they meet the attendance rules, I think that it's fine to have same house. I think it's going to be more likely that parents that are on these committees that are trying to teach their kids and get them involved, and for the kids that are ninth graders and 10th graders that don't have their driver's license or the kids that do not have a car that are even of age to be able to drive, making it as easy as possible for them to be able to get down here. And I think that we're probably going to get a higher participation rate from the kids of people that are on committees. And so I'd like to eliminate that. And for the excusing absences, I don't think you pick a committee that you're able to make it to show up for, and excusing that for a season. I'm all about, I love football and want the football players to be involved in it. But maybe pick a committee where it's not going to be an obstruction to your participation, where participating in sports not going to keep you from making it to a meeting. We're talking about mostly one meeting a month, and it's on the same day typically, always. So if your practices or games are going to interfere with that, maybe pick a committee that doesn't interfere with it.
Just kind of curious, nods around here. I agree with both sides of that as well too. Is that where we all?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty
most
much,
definitely.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So.
Same household.
Same
Same household's
household is
fine.
It's
okay,
fine. For you,
But
hold them to the attendance.
correct.
Okay,
pick a committee that you can accommodate.
okay. Do we need a motion for that or no? Just a
That's just an interpretation.
consensus?
Yeah, we
right?
have
Okay, okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And then Walker's disposal franchise agreement. Peter, I'm gonna let you have this one. You kind of run us through what you need to do.
Yeah, so over the last few months, you guys have probably heard, I know I have heard, there have been a lot of complaints about service. And there have been times where for folks to get service, including the school district had to email Melanie and Sadie. Melanie and Sadie had to email me. I had to email Walker's lawyer, and Walker's lawyer had to basically force it to happen. That's happened a number of times with people that simply can't get service. It's not, I mean, you guys pay me a flat amount per month, so, but it's not a good use of my time. It's really not a good use of your staff's time. Those are some of the issues we've been having. But what is even more concerning to me is that people have not been getting bills. And the way that the franchise agreement is written is you're able to bill people 2 months in advance or 2 months in arrears. But if they don't receive a bill and it's greater than 2 months, the franchisee isn't able to collect, and we do not receive a franchise fee on it. We have heard reports from some people that they haven't been billed in 6 months. And so for those people, you know, most of them have paid anyway despite not getting a bill. But we can't get customer counts. We can't get any audited financial statements. The franchise fee that was paid for through June, under the terms of the franchise, it needed to be paid within 45 days. It was paid a few weeks ago. And we were hand delivered bills for August, September, and October today at City Hall. You know, technically by terms of our agreement, we could pay for the last couple of days of August, but we shouldn't have been billed for any amount prior to that. And again, I mean, I could kind of go on and on about the issues that we're having under our franchise agreement. We need to provide a 30-day notice to cure. And then they need to be able to cure within that 30 days, provide proof to us that they have. At which point, and if they're not able to cure within that 30-day period, then we're able to terminate the franchise agreement and we're able to assign it. And I know that none of you, all of us were really hoping that we all like locally owned companies. Walker's been here a long time. We really wanted it to work out for them, but we're not seeing things getting better. We're actually seeing things get worse, and we're having people not having their yard debris getting picked up on the date that it's supposed to. We're having people not able to get service, not able to get bills. That we've received reports, I don't know whether they're true or not, of yard debris and garbage being commingled, which is kind of the opposite of what we had hoped for at when this program was put into place. And, you know, at this point, my recommendation is we send the letter, and I'm concerned that if we don't, given the amount of violations we're aware of, that it would be creating precedent. And again, we've wanted to give them time to get up to speed. We know that they walked into a bad situation, but people that were getting their bills before are no longer getting their bills. People aren't able to pay online. We heard testimony tonight that the person was instructed to drop a check off at City Hall. We're not supposed to be collecting and processing checks for our franchisees. That's not our role. And you know, I would ask that you authorize Melanie and I to put together the letter, just setting forth the violations, and that, you know, we give them a chance to cure. I have been in contact with their lawyer. I have emailed their lawyer after last meeting. I guess the good news, nobody wants to terminate a franchise agreement. We want them to have a opportunity to be successful. The good news for Estacada is that we have another waste collection company already operating in the city. And you know, I think that they would definitely have to do some educational stuff and gather data related to, you know, routes, everything else. But hopefully that could aid in kind of getting things up. And then we do also have a different waste collection company that's operating outside of the city in unincorporated Clackamas County. And so that's another conversation that we could have if it came to that.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah, so I want to start by saying like everybody else in this room, I wanted to see it work for the local family as well. But then there's the professional side of me that says that there's no excuses for sharing your life story and your troubles and your woes with your customer base. I'm sorry, but professionally speaking, it's not their problem that your life has gotten complicated and that you're going through struggles. That's just not our customer's problem. So there's that part of me that says like we stepped in, we tried to rectify. I'd still be curious to know, like, from a standpoint, you know, is Walker, that, I mean, that's the other carrier that's in town, right? Like
Arrows,
or
yeah.
Arrow, excuse
Yeah.
me, is Arrow interested in, is there any way to salvage this so that there's money to be made here for Walker? Like, is there still interest in them absorbing?
I mean, we've worked with Arrow and I've worked with Arrow in different jurisdictions, and, you know, they're a above the board company. They're a company that tries to do the right thing. This is a little bit challenging for them because the very numbers that they would need in order to come up with a fair offer and to understand, you know, and they know how much like bins cost, all that stuff they know. But just like we can't get audited financial statements or customer counts or all those things, they can't get that either. And then they would have to have boots on the ground, literally going door to door, collecting the data so that they could provide that in a timely manner. And so I'm not going to pretend that this would be as easy of a transaction as if they were purchasing for a franchise from a, you know, that was fully up and running, that could provide them all those numbers so they could perform those financials and all that. That said, Arrow, my understanding is Arrow has been getting calls from Walker customers asking Arrow if Arrow can provide services. So they've been very aware of these issues and they've been super sympathetic to those people. They just can't collect outside of their territory. So I think we have an Arrow representative here this evening that can answer some questions if you have questions.
I mean, I simply just want to know if that's an offer on the table. I'm always interested in trying to see somebody else not completely get flatlined over, you know, unfortunate circumstances, but you know, that would be something that regardless of you guys sending this letter, I'm totally for it, but like, regardless of that, I would just like it to be noted that I'd like to see some options taken to make sure that the ownership of Walker has something to walk away from this with. At least we've done our due diligence, try to help support them in their exit, if that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And sort of to piggyback off of that, I want to make sure that the staff at Walker Disposal has some sort of, you know, place to go. I've had excellent drivers and excellent service. However, I have not gotten a bill in 6 months. And as far as administrative wise, it's been a total soup sandwich over there. And I was rooting for him, but it's been an absolute disaster. That's not to say that the folks picking up that are hauling my garbage, they've been absolutely wonderful. So I would like to make sure that they're, you know, either they have jobs in place or are appropriately compensated, because I'd hate to see those guys get, you know, railroaded. So yeah,
Right.
it's
So
my
we can
concern.
convey all that.
Yeah.
I just want to say this is completely heartbreaking, but I feel like we don't have a choice in this. I think that we need to give them an extremely detailed list of what they need to give to us, because they seem confused at what they need to provide for us. So I just want that to be extremely clear.
I agree with everything that's been said. Just as a city, we've already gone out on a limb for this company. This is what we did for Walker was more than what we've ever done for any other business in the city of Estacada since I've been on council. You know, as Shirley said, as Peter said, Walker's been in this community for a long time, and I would love to see them succeed. I would love to see them. I mean, we put forward a lot of effort to help them succeed. But you know, no pun intended, but if the business is a dumpster fire, you know, things need to be rectified. So I agree with what Heidi said, a very detailed list of what we need from them. You know, and we need to be strict with our timeline.
I just wanted to get into what the list of what you're planning on. Obviously, they need to produce a customer list would be one thing. They need to have a billing system in place that can send out a bill and collect a bill.
Yeah.
And
We need it we need audited financial statements.
And then I would say that new service requests are resolved within 48 hours is a realistic requirement. That
Right.
if somebody comes in and needs garbage and you're the only one that can provide garbage service for them, if that person cannot have a can within 48 hours, or maybe we can ask Arrow, what's the timeline for a new service connect, like when buckets can get dropped out there after a new service request? If they were not able to resolve the issues that we're going to ask them to, and I think it sounds like it's 99% the office that's the issue.
Can you come up to the microphone?
So if the office is the issue, you should be able to, even walking door to door within a week, get a customer list provided. And if you can't do it from your office that's in shambles, then get somebody and pay somebody to go out door to door and produce a customer list. The billing system's an office issue. The new service request is a service issue that's coming from the office. The rude customer service is coming from the office. It seems pretty straightforward where the problem is. It's not with the guys that are out doing the service. Because everyone that I've spoken to about Walker's guys they're
great.
They're amazing. And the problem is with the office. But another quick question for Arrow is, if they weren't able to rectify the problems that we're having with them and those drivers, would they be given, could you guys commit to giving them first priority to fill positions in your trucks and still be able to stay working in the community so that they're not impacted by the failures of the office staff?
Sure. Thank you. Josh Brown, District Manager for Arrow. Thanks for the opportunity. Very unique position for us to be in. I'll first say that. And I also echo the sentiment of the council. I personally had a great relationship with Judy Walker. So I would like them to succeed as well. As far as the purchase or anything goes along that lines, I can't really speak to that until we have the opportunity to talk to them. But we are interested. We have been in this community for a long time, even prior to Arrow acquiring the American Sanitary franchise many, many years ago. So we have been in this community a long time. And I wanted to just clarify, Arrow has not taken any approach to try to take over Walker's franchise. I actually have helped them quite a bit, personally and professionally, offered them resources for equipment, for trucks, as well as done everything we can to help keep them in business. I grew up in a family garbage business, so it is near and dear to my heart as well. So I did want to say that. As far as the employees go, yes, sir, we would entertain bringing them on. We do have some probably a little more stringent onboarding practices in place, so they would have to pass our qualifications. But by all means, we would love to keep them employed and keep them on the routes because they know them a lot better than we would. So
Is that drug testing? Is that what you're alluding to?
that's part of it, yes, as well as a background check.
And just for clarification, or just for the recorded meeting purpose, new customers typically will have garbage cans at their house within a couple days.
That's our standard typically, yes,
Okay.
yes. The sooner the better.
And just to piggyback on what Josh said, Arrow has created forms. They've shared all those forms with Walker over the years. They've given Walker data that Walker could use in order to do better. They really have, they've been the opposite of predatory. They've really lent a helping hand. And that's part of what makes this all so sad, is that this is an example of, and like Arrow was ready to roll out this yard debris thing over a year ago, and they delayed, and so did we, because we were just trying to figure out a way to make this work out. And like, this is one of the rare scenarios where I've seen like staff, and I don't even want to call them the competition, but where I've seen staff and council and other people in the industry all just really going out of their way to try and land the plane. And I really wish we weren't having this conversation tonight, but you know, we had testimony earlier tonight, and I wish that was an isolated incident, but it's not. It's like we're constantly getting these calls. People are on Facebook, and it's just like I've spent more time on waste issues in the last like 18 months than I've been licensed to practice law for 22 years. Like in Estacada on waste issues more than every other city I've represented during my entire career. And it speaks to like our commitment of trying to figure out a solution. And I'm unfortunately, I'm just reaching the conclusion that we're not going to get there. I still, you know, they're going to have the 30 days. I hope that they kind of come to us with like a professional plan. The other thing that I would ask for is under a franchise agreement, we're only able to inspect their books once a year. Due to the financial issues, what I would ask for in the letter is a monthly ability to inspect their books and accounts. And again, that's a burden on us, but just we have to be able to start verifying some of these numbers.
They also require, the franchise agreement requires online bill pay option on their website.
So in the interest of solution and moving the conversation forward a little bit here on the solution side of things, one, thank you for helping these guys try to land on their feet. I know our community greatly appreciates it. I know I personally appreciate it. And as well as your guys' service has been great. But so in the interest of solutions here, what are we looking for here? I know that you guys want a motion to send the letter, I get that, but if this doesn't get rectified, just speaking aloud so that everybody in the community knows where our mind is on this, what are the solutions here? Are we looking at, I would say with somebody that's been willing to demonstrate loyalty and support to their competition or the other vendor in this case. I mean, if they were willing to help our community, even in the essence of costing them money, right? Because they could have just sealed this deal sooner. Then I think that's a show of gesture that I would wager to say we should support them if we have to go away from Walker, and maybe just for the term of the current agreement, right? That we would just give it to them until we review our contracts or whatever later on down the line.
I mean, I don't think we need to, I don't think we need to make that decision tonight, but I think that's likely the direction that makes sense. You know, they've got, I think, 3 years left on their franchise, and Walker does. And so, you know, for continuity purposes and everything else, and we've got a lot of moving pieces here. And what I don't want is for people to not be getting their garbage picked up for a period of time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Paul, did you have something you wanted to add?
I'm ready for the motion.
Okay, and I'm gonna recuse myself from this one also because being the mayor, I've had conversations with Kim, which is part of the ownership, and I wouldn't feel right, you know, talking about it right here or voting on it if I had just talked to her about that. So I'm gonna recuse myself from this vote. Mike?
Just one quick thing. We're voting for you guys to draft a letter. Are you going to bring the letter back for our approval, or is the intent that we're not going to know the contents of the letter
If you want
with
us,
approval?
we can bring it back for your approval.
Well, I want to expedite things, but I just want to have a clear idea of what's going to go in the letter before I approve you to send the letter, because I want to know what the conditions are that we're going to hold them to,
Okay. we
that
can
I'm
list that.
approving.
We could
So-
do a special meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Um,
potentially.
Or we could list the things that we wouldn't have the exact language of the letter, but we could.
I
list
don't need the
things.
exact language, just the spirit of it,
The
like a
spirit, right.
checklist, customer
Yeah.
list, billing
Customers,
system,
Audited
new service
financials.
requests, auditable
That's number one.
financial reports.
What's that?
That's number one.
Number one, the audited financial.
Yes.
Requiring the online bill pay, which I heard somebody, I think. Shirley
Not
said
requiring
that.
online bill pay, just requiring that they have a
But-
billing system that could. Oh,
It's
But
part of
it
the
is-
franchise.
oh, it is? Oh,
Yeah.
never mind. I apologize.
They might have it set up already, but requiring a new customer to drop off a check doesn't really bode well
You
for.
pay a fee.
Yeah. New customer, let's see, new service request resolved within, should I say 48 to 72 hours?
They're doing it
40.
twice a week. I would say within 4 days. If they're
Okay.
doing it twice, I mean, I would think the max would be 4 days if you're
4
doing it twice
days,
a week.
okay.
Yeah.
Monthly ability to review their books, how do I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the 5 things that I wrote down.
We need to be paid our franchise agreements within 45 days per the franchise. Franchise fees within 45 days per the agreement, and they need to be audited.
Okay.
Is there anything we can do about their treatment of customers by phone? I mean, is there anything we can do about, them answering their phones?
I mean, we could say that they need to resolve customer questions or service within 48 hours. So even if it's like your can will be there on Wednesday, you know, that people would have clear communication, they would know, they would get their account number, they would get their what their monthly payment would be. And they would know that they would know their pickup days so they can put it out. I mean, frankly, all the things that all of the items that were mentioned during the citizen comment are things that need to happen.
Chantel, do you mind me asking you, did you get the name of the person you're on the phone with?
Same lady every single time. I never spoke to anyone else.
Okay.
What else?
I think
Oh,
we can
that-
go with this now.
That customers need to bill the customers. I don't think I listed that. Did I list that?
Yes, we need
Customers need to be billed.
no greater than,
And something that says any further than 60 days back, they can't submit a bill to that customer.
right, that's
That's-
in there, that's
Yeah.
in the franchise agreement.
And sometimes customers, we've been getting people calling that say customers will call the office, say, I don't need a bill, just tell me how much I owe. And that has not been information that is readily available.
Yeah.
So.
Have they been collecting for service outside of that 60-day period when they're allowed to bill?
So what's interesting is that if they billed people timely and people didn't pay, they could go back and get the amount. But when they don't bill people and it's more than 60 days, then they can't retroactively collect those amounts. So another item that we don't have is we don't have accounts receivable, and we have no way of knowing whether those arrearages are people that received a bill or didn't, because we don't know who they're billing.
Yeah. And I want to know what, like, is there any way for us to know what franchise fees were not being paid because they're not sending out a bill and I mean, that would be in the audited financials. We'd be able to extrapolate that information from it.
Yes, that would be in the audited financials.
Yeah, I mean,
They can do that.
the financials that we were given were not audited, and no representations or warranties were made. There was heavy disclaimer language that no representations or warranties were made regarding the accuracy. So without getting into what was on those, we were not able to rely on any of that data because we were told we couldn't rely on any of that data.
Okay, I think we got enough information. Everybody's good. You're gonna get a checklist to check out to make sure that we're looking at everything right. Okay.
It sounded like they gave us the list.
That's the list.
That's the list.
We'll put the letter together tomorrow and send it so that Walker can start working on that.
Right, it'll
I
go,
think we should
it'll
copy
go
the-
out by the end of the week. The letter will go out by the end of the week.
Copy
Consensus
and-
or a motion?
Just a motion will be great.
Motion to send the
Yeah.
letter.
Go ahead.
I move to direct staff to follow the process outlined in the ordinance to notify Walker's disposal of noncompliance with the provisions of the ordinance and provide them with 30 days to come into compliance.
Second.
Okay, first and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. It passes.
Thank you.
I didn't vote. Okay, we are at the next citizen and community group comment. Do I have any forms or online or anything? No? Okay, mayor and council reports and comments. Let's start with you, Jerry.
So again, as the mayor said, thank you, Mike. You always come up, sorry, Councilor McElroy. You always come up with questions that I would have never thought to ask. And I really appreciate that. Because not only do we get, does the community get the answers that they deserve, but we also get the answers that we didn't know we needed. I really appreciate your insight, when it comes to that. This council cares about this community. There's nothing, there's nothing that can be said against that. This council definitely cares about this community. We put ourselves on the line for an individual business. We did everything we could to help that business get at least started in the right direction. And, I really appreciate how much this council cares. It means a lot, especially for a longtime resident like myself. I really appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that came out today. And thank you for those that spoke up for, bringing your voice to this council, because again, this council cares. So thank you guys. Make sure you get your ballots turned in. Our ballot box does have fire suppression in it. So rest assured that your ballot will make it and get counted. So thank you guys.
I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Appreciate seeing people in the seats. It means a lot to me personally. This is how we can address things, is by hearing from you what it is that's the priority and where you're at. So thank you for coming tonight and sharing and listening and hearing us go back and forth in conversation on the things that revolve around you and our community. So I appreciate that. Please vote, get out, make your voice heard. I don't care if you vote for me. I don't care if you vote for any of the other 4 guys that are running, but please get out and vote for whoever it is that represents your interests and your vision for this community going forward and for the country. This matters. Your voice matters, your opinion matters. We all like to get hyped up on computers and on our phones and talk about and energized about things that are going on in the world and in our community digitally. I'm asking that we get involved physically and we vote and we share and express our opinions. And we know that it matters because that's what this country was founded for, right? And we want, like Jerry pointed out, we want to work for you, but to do that, we need to know what it is you need and what your visions are. So please vote and please continue to show up and be involved.
Well, we're a week out from election and I hope everyone has made a plan to vote. If you haven't received your ballot, please contact the county elections office. The county elections office has a ballot tracking tool you can use and you can sign up for that at their website. If I heard that it was 3 to 4 business days that ballots will be in there and tracked and told you that it's arrived. So if you are in a delay here, you should probably contact the county elections office for that. You can use the drop boxes at City Hall or the library or mail your ballot in, and the sooner the better, so it gets counted. I encourage everyone to thoroughly research every candidate and ballot measure. Don't rely on posters, signs, ads, or word of mouth. We all have different opinions and values. Read the voters pamphlet, look at who's endorsing which candidates, pay attention to who is spending money to promote certain measures and candidates and how it may benefit them and not you. Please vote up and down the ballot if you can, and I encourage you to at least vote locally, even if it's only on the measures that will affect our community. Make sure your vote aligns with how you want this city, state, and country to move forward. And thank you to everyone for being a voter and doing your civic duty.
Thank everyone for coming out tonight. I appreciate the public comments that come in. I wanted to clarify one thing. I didn't really get a chance to respond to Wally earlier when he asked for whether or not I was for slowing growth in Estacada or development. I don't think it's a reality that you're going to slow it as long as there's legally buildable land out here. We have the largest buildable land inventory. I don't think that's going to slow down at all. And my point of view on that is that I'm not looking to slow it down for someone else to determine what the development in the community that I live in and my family goes to school in looks like. I would rather actively participate in what that development looks like. So rather than trying to curb it for someone 10 years down the road to decide what my community looks like, I'd rather actively shape what my community looks like by determining what type of construction comes in, what kind of construction we're encouraging to come in. And so that's my outlook on it. It's not that I'm pro-growth. The reality of the situation is that the growth is coming. The growth is coming in Clackamas County. It's coming in Estacada. And what do you want that growth to look like? So what do you want your neighborhood to look like is what my focus is on, not stopping the neighborhood from going in. So I'd rather play an active role in what that looks like for my kids that are going to be here for a long time. Appreciate everyone coming out and get out and vote. Everyone's hit that pretty hard already, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you for everyone for coming. Appreciate the staff for all the work that they put into everything. And thank you for everyone for coming.
Well, Mike nails it again with that comment there. I think these three that went before him would say, I wish I could have said the exact same thing. And I would say that as well too, but thanks for those that come out. And Jerry, you mentioned working with a council that cares. I would agree. I think we care deeply, and just judging by the folks that stop me when I'm out walking, going to the mail, going to the bank, going to the grocery store, I get stopped a lot with questions, insights, comments on the city. And I just appreciate that. And I appreciate working in a city that cares as well too.
Thank you, Jared.
Well, the nice thing about going second to last is I don't really get to say much. And so they said it all for me, which is fantastic. So appreciate everybody coming out always. Comments. I really do appreciate citizen comments. Much like what Councilor Metcalf said, if you don't come and comment, we don't know. We can't help you. So continue that. You may think that we don't agree with you or whatever, but you may find that you actually have a strong ally group up here. So continue to come, and we do actually care about what's going on in this community. And I know growth is difficult, change is difficult, but a way that you can be a positive impact on that is to become more involved and then that way you can shape how you want that to look because I mean, it is just gonna happen. It's inevitable. But thank you again for coming out and have a safe and wonderful week.
Well, he took the air out of my bag, I can tell you. Everybody said everything already, but I think it's hard decisions we make up here, and tonight was one of them. We talked about locals. I heard Shirley back there going off about 20 times. We care about everybody in this city. Every one of us do. So know that the decisions we make up here are not easy. They're never easy. Walkers I've known for years, and I love them dearly. I do. I love the kids. I love the mom. I loved all of them. But things are changing. Our city's getting bigger. The requirements are higher and harder. We have to meet those. We have to make the decision whether we do it right or wrong. And this city's going to make the right choice. So we hope you understand that when you're out there condemning us for going against a local, because I can hear you back there and it's kind of disruptive. So I just ask that you watch that in the future. But that said, get out there and vote. It's very important. This election means a lot to everyone. And I think it's across the board. You got all the candidates in the room right here. So obviously they care. And they're going to do a great job, anyone you pick. So we appreciate that. And we appreciate staff giving us all the answers and having the time to spend with us when we don't understand the issues, when they bring it to us. So we appreciate that. And of course, Sadie over there, who never gets thanked, she does a great job making sure that we stay online and that everybody's listening and everybody's pumped in. So we appreciate everybody tonight. And we're going to let you go. This meeting is adjourned.